Welcome to the Table Talk Radio Show. I'm your host, Tanisha Simpkins.
I'm a co-host, Pastor A.
That's A. And we have as a guest today, we have Superintendent Bob Runcie from the Broward Schools. And we are delighted, guys, that you will join us on today. Today is April the 27th, 2020. And our theme for today is education and parenting. I know we do a lot, and we have been talking a lot, Nathan, when it comes to COVID, quarantine, the news, number 45, everything like that. But we're going to shift gears on today because I think it's very important because of most of our schools right now, I would say probably all of our schools right now are virtual. So there's a lot of questions that we do have, especially here in the Broward and the Dade. Unfortunately, we don't have our Dade County, but it's probably, can mirror probably almost about the same as for when it comes to education. Hello, Superintendent. How are you this evening?
Hey, I'm fine, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to join your fabulous show and be able to connect with your audience and our people in the community. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we can go ahead and just jump right in as to some of the questions that we do have when it comes to the education of the parents. One of the questions I want to know is, I think it was a post that you had did or maybe a video because I do watch the videos, and you said probably about 90% of the students have logged in. Is that still accurate?
So there's a number of numbers. So about 91% is our average daily attendance, right? These are students that have logged in, they're engaged, they're in the learning management system. So it's about 90%. About 98% of all students have logged in at some point since we have been, since we've closed our campuses. That means there's a good percentage that are not engaging regularly, it's sporadic, or they haven't logged in. So those are the folks that I can talk a little bit about what we're doing there. And so for those students, we have lists every day of students who have not connected or engaged properly. And we have all of our social workers, our school social workers, our family counselors, um, behavior specialists, other mental health support staff. We have all of those individuals engaged in delivering services that they would normally do on campuses. We're having them connect in any way they can to identify those students, to reach out to them via emails, via phone calls, text messages. Some of them are going to their homes. I know that because I had some angry parent call and say, I don't want anybody coming to
Oh,
my house
wow.
anymore. So yes, we're doing everything that we can to reach out to them. Some people may not realize, but in Broward County, we have over 4,000 homeless students, right? These are students with housing insecurity, transient. And so we have really paid close attention to them. And I think as of last week, there were about 300 of those 4,000 or so who had not yet
Wow.
connected. So we actually have a department called HEART, Homeless Education Assistance Resource Team, and they go out and make sure they're connecting with these kids. So we're making sure that we find them, that we give them,
Hmm.
and make sure they get a computer laptop. And we've also arranged to provide free internet services to those students through mobile hotspots. So we're trying to make sure that those students that are at greatest risk, that we are trying to make sure that they're connected and not lost during this digital moment we're in. So as they say, leave no child behind. We're trying to make sure that we don't do that in this period of time. And as you know, we've given out computers to anyone that wants them. I don't know a district in the country that has given out as many laptops as we've done, over 90,000 laptops to date. We've also provided free Wi-Fi access through a Sprint 1 million project, about 3,000 of those devices. And we're giving out free mobile hotspots to, again, students who are homeless or housing instability, or those that are having significant financial hardships. I mean, there's students out there we know who are now becoming the main breadwinner of the family because folks have lost their jobs. They may be working full time at, Publix, or CVS or Walgreens, just really trying to help the family survive. We've got to have some grace and compassion to them, give them flexibility, and reach out to them and give them everything that we can to help support them in this really, really challenging time for many.
All right.
Superintendent, I want to ask you a question. One of the things that we've been trying to, I passed in Broward County, and we've been trying to stress, especially to our young people, is putting forth the effort. There's a lot of myths going on around saying, well, in this virtual reality, hey, I don't really have to try because everybody's going to pass. I want you to try to address that a little bit to try to make sure that our students are putting forth their maximum effort, although they're not in the physical classrooms.
Right. So I want to be very clear on this, and I really appreciate you asking this question. So this pandemic, this crisis we're in, is not a pass to do nothing. It's not a virtual vacation. It's just a new mode of learning, right? And so our students need to understand you need to sign on, you need to engage with your teachers, you need to attend your Canvas courses, and if you don't, it's going to affect your ultimate grade because your performance in this fourth quarter marking period does matter for promotion and your final grades. Yes, we don't have to do the state mandated assessments. Things like the end of course exams, they're no longer necessary. But you're going to have to do your coursework. You're going to have to turn in assignments, and you're going to have to make a good effort to get your work done in order to be successful during this market period. So this period of time is not a free pass, and there shouldn't be misinformation out there to think otherwise. So again, that can't be stressed. And by the way, at the end of the day, the only person that's you're cheating is yourself. So look, our young people, you got to get online. You got to get engaged. If you're having any difficulty, you can still call your school. All our administrators, we forwarded the phone lines so that they're picking them up. And so when you call during the normal school hours, you'll get help, you'll get support. When you go into Canvas, you still can get access to guidance counselors and those support staff in the school. They have office hours that are scheduled, and you can go in and make sure you get connected. And the last thing I would say is, virtual learning is going to be more and more a part of, education, whether you're at Broward County schools, you go to Broward College, you go to FAMU, you go to University of Florida, University of Miami, everywhere you go, many classes are going to have a virtual component. So you really need to begin to start working in that mode and prepare yourself now for the future.
So, I mean, guys, you hear that? You're watching this, you're hearing from the horse's mouth, if you would. This is now, I'm going to use that quote. This is not a virtual vacation. You have to put forth maximum effort. You are doing yourself a disservice by not doing so. And so we want to squash all of the myths that may be out there that, hey, you could just kind of log in and go back and get it and not do your schoolwork. So
right. And we're trying to make things flexible. So this week, we're going to send out additional information directly to students and parents about how grading is going to occur. So yes, we're not going to do final. So for example, we're not doing final exams this year, but we will work an opportunity for the specific, whatever grade that you get. Let's say you get a passing grade of a C or higher, and I'm just giving you an example. We're going to lay out the details later this week, but we would take the higher of the first, second, or third, or the fourth marking period, and we'll use that as your final exam grade, right? So we're going to try to create some flexibility in there, but you got to do work. You can't fail you can't fail the fourth quarter by doing no work, because then you're going to have a problem in terms of what your final grade and outcome should be. So yes, everyone needs to continue to do their coursework. And we're trying to also work with our teachers, right? So this online learning is a little different. I've heard the whole range of things from our kids that, hey, I'm getting too much work sent to me. So for example, we have high schools, many of them have been on what we call AB block schedule, right? So you got 4 classes on Monday, you got 4 different classes on Tuesday, and then, they just rotate. They're 90 minutes apiece. Well, during this virtual period, we try to simulate that as much as possible. In some instances, they have not coordinated it well enough so that you might be getting all 8 periods on one day, right? And that could be a lot. So, but we're working through those, and we're making the adjustments, and we understand that. And any student we see that's struggling, I will tell you that on Tuesday, which is tomorrow, we will issue 4th quarter interim reports, and they're available online on Virtual Counselor. And the way you can access those for a parent or anyone is, you go on a single sign-on. That's sso.browardschools.com, just how you sign on to our learning management system. So for elementary interim reports, if you don't see any interim report there, you're fine. It means that the student is engaged and they're making progress. For our secondary, for grades 6 through 12, you're going to be provided a letter grade on your current status for each of your courses on this interim report. So again, your work does matter for this 4th quarter, and you'll start seeing signs of that this week as we release interim reports. And then we also will be providing additional guidance out to our teachers, which we've already done some of that, but we're going to send out some additional communications to parents as well as students so that we can reinforce how we're going to actually figure out final grades and promotion criteria, et cetera, because now that's all local since the state components are no longer relevant for this school year.
Okay.
Wow.
So I do have a question that was asked about graduation. I think you may have sent out a few information when it comes to graduation. I know a lot of people who kids are graduating, who kids aren't graduating, have this question because we know graduation is such a special moment, and prom is a special, spectacular moment. So what's the course when it comes for graduation?
All right. So what I communicated on a number of occasions is that, one, we are going to do a virtual graduation. That's all that we can plan at this moment, right? And those graduations are going to be held from the mid part to the latter part of June. They're going to be broadcast live on television. We're also going to live stream them on the internet. And so, you'll have family members or folks that will be able to see your graduation who's never been able to do that before, right? So there are some pluses to it, and some students see it. We've also made it clear, and I had discussed this when I had my student focus groups, look, if circumstances change, and a lot of these restrictions around the pandemic, such as the stay-at-home orders, restrictions on large gatherings, and we can get some better guidance on that, absolutely, I'll be the first one to be rushing in to go set up and do a traditional graduation, which I know our students have worked hard for. They deserve it. It's a culmination of their whole entire educational experience, and it's also important for their families to experience that, especially if you're first generation graduating from high school. I was the first of my family to graduate from high school, so I know how important that is. What I did with staff is, since we know that we weren't able to execute on graduations, which we usually start the last week of May into the first week of June, those venues that we had secured and paid for, we rescheduled dates with them for the end of July through the first week of August. Now, I haven't committed to that, right? And I don't want to send messages out to the community and setting false expectations when I don't know, and none of us know, what the state of affairs are going to be in the summer. I don't want to say to students, hey, I'm going to guarantee you I'm going to do 2 graduations, and I don't know if that's going to occur. In fact, even if we were to push it out to December, based on the reports that I'm getting and seeing from the CDC and others, we could have a second wave of the epidemic that erupts in December and January. So we just really need to play by ear, hope for the best, and again, should conditions change and circumstances, we will move forward and hold traditional graduations in addition to the virtual ones that we're having. But I think folks are going to see that we're going to do a really great job with the virtual graduations. They're going to be memorable, and we're going to try to make it something that the class of 2020 is deserving of.
Before Dr. Lee, introduce yourself, I do have one question with that. What about the refunds? What about the refunds for graduation? Or like my daughter, they was scheduled at Plantation High to go to the aerospace in I think Huntsville, Alabama. And most of the kids already paid. Like, what about the refunds?
Yeah.
Are they offering or?
So what I've done, so graduation, there isn't really a refund for graduation. You're still going to get your cap and gown, your cords, all your certificates, everything that you normally, because we know students they need to take pictures with families, etc. On May 1st, we're going to be providing information to all of our seniors on, what the schedule is going to be, how do they pick up their cap and gown and cords and certificates and the regalia, everything they need. So that'll be coming forth on May 1st. To your second question about different activities that students have paid for, whether it's grad bash, or prom or any of these other activities, what I've done is I've drafted a letter strongly encouraging those vendors that we've been doing business with year after year that we would like you to consider providing a refund, if not all, at least some portion of it, to our families that desperately need those dollars in this moment in time. So staff has created a list of those vendors, and those letters have gone out to those vendors who the individual schools have been working with.
Oh, okay.
Let me say this again, and let me just put this out there. This is an opportunity for parents and churches and small groups to get creative with their graduates and their students. If we understand that the mass gatherings may be prohibited, but I challenge churches. If you have graduates at your church, hey, use your facility. Parents, if you have multiple children in your family graduate, hey, this is time to decorate that backyard and be creative. We understand that we want it to be traditional, but we're not living in traditional times. And so I would suggest that you make it memorable. We understand that the school board will do their best to make it as memorable as possible, but it does not stop you as a parent or as an organization from allowing this to be an opportunity to make it memorable. So I just want to put that out there.
Great point. Thank you so much for that.
We have Dr. Lee on the line with us.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
My tardiness.
Teresa?
Yeah, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hello, Mr. Runcie. Please forgive me. My question is, I realize that for people in the transition year, beginning or end, it's traumatic for them. But what about the students who just may need support, from sophomore to junior year or from 7th grade to 8th grade, whatever the year may be? What are future and present plans to kind of support them in what can easily be labeled as one of the most devastating interruptions to the academic system or the academic journey in decades?
Yeah, so we're doing a number of things now. Is we're starting to plan for a number of things. One, what does a summer school look like that could be an extended, the equivalent almost of an extended year for students we know that may be struggling or falling behind, because we know there's going to be some level of learning loss. It could be significant, but we got to do everything we can to mitigate that. So I'm looking at opportunities to extend the school day, provide additional, and possibly even change the whole school calendar next year, so there are extra days there, ensuring that if we're doing a summer school that we have some of our, and let's say we can't do it with traditional campuses, but that we put our best online distance learning teachers engaged in that process. So we are putting a list of opportunities and submitting that to the state and the federal government and making the case that those dollars that we need are specifically to help our students that attend Title I schools, students that have special needs. This week, there's a letter that's going from the Council of Great City Schools, which represents about 70 of the largest urban districts in America, which Broward School is a member. Miami's a member, Palm Beach, many districts in the state. That letter is going to the House leaders in both the Senate and Congress, basically asking them for a little over $200 billion in support for K-12. That may seem like a large number, but let's think about it. In 2008, at the onset of the Great Recession, they allocated $100 billion for education. So far, in the first round of what we call the stimulus-related appropriations bill that was put forth, there's only 30 billion allocated, and out of that 30 billion, I believe only about 17 billion or so was allocated for K-12. Remember, in 2008, there was about 100 billion. We know that the economic impact of this pandemic that we're dealing with is significantly greater than 2008. So that's one. Number two, when you look at South Florida, and we're trying to impress this upon the state, that should there be any discretionary dollars available, a larger proportion of those should go to South Florida. We have the majority of COVID cases here. When you look at Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, it's about 60% of the state total. So we are adversely impacted here relative to other parts of this state. The other piece of it is that our districts, in particular Broward and Dade, have some of the largest percentages of students in poverty. Our free and reduced meal rate in Broward County is 63% of our students qualify for free and reduced meals. We also have large percentages of English language learners, and we have a large percentage of students with IEPs, students with special needs. I call them students with special abilities, but we have a large number of those, of almost 40,000 students that have IEPs. The ask to Congress is $175 million to be allocated to public schools based on Title I formula, $13 billion to be specifically allocated to help address IDEA, Individuals with Disability Education Act. So those are our ESE students in Broward. Another $12 million specifically for Title I programs, which are schools with high poverty numbers associated with them. And then finally, another $2 billion for E-rate, which is the federal program that builds out technology and infrastructure for district. All total, it's a little bit over 200 billion. That's our ask, and we're going to need that. Without that, we could be seeing cuts in Broward as high as 25% of our budget, which we're going to do everything we can to protect the classroom, protect our students and teachers from our core work. But there's going to be pain felt in this. And
that's a large number, 25%.
It is a large number. So we're hoping that does not materialize, and for the federal government to step up. Finally, I would say that 20, it could be 15, 20, 25%. It's not unrealistic, especially in a state like Florida. When you think about it, we have no income tax. We essentially rely on property tax and sales tax. Big tourism state. Tourism is dead. It's gone, right? Disney shut down, 43,000 jobs furloughed. Disney accounted for half of the tourists in Florida, about 50 million visitors a year. The cruise ship industry, they're shuttered. Vacancy rates for, occupancy rates for hotels are in the single digits. So we know those funds are going to be impacted. We may not see it right at this moment, but I guarantee you we're going to see the financial ramifications in next year's budget. And for many governmental agencies, et cetera, our fiscal year start on July 1st. So we're going to see decline in property tax, decline in state revenues. We're all going to be hit pretty hard with that. And if there's no offset to that, it's going to be a very painful year.
Superintendent, thank you so much, of course, for being on with us. We certainly appreciate your being so candid in everything that we are asking you. But I want to piggyback on something that you said earlier about the new norm, as you know, the virtual reality of school moving forward. How do you think that's going to impact, especially K through 6? We know that middle school and high schools have kind of already been exposed to the virtual reality, but how do you think it's going to impact K through 6, and how can the school board help parents? A lot of parents were caught off guard because if you had a little child such as myself, you just you couldn't catch up in that area. So the school board able and willing to put some things in place that will help educate parents as to how to deal with the new norm moving forward.
Yeah,
and I want to add something to what Pastor Ed is saying, and also with those parents with language barriers, like our Haitian or Spanish community.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. The biggest challenger in our primary grades, where the parent has now been, a teacher aide as well, because the students need that kind of support. There are obviously pluses to that, right? So parents are getting a real intimate close-up view of what education looks like, how difficult it is, and the kind of work that our teachers are doing. I wish I could pay them more, but we're constrained by what we get from the state. But they deserve every penny they have, and I think everyone's seen how essential and central our public education system is to the functioning of our society and our economy, and how challenging that work is. But it is an opportunity for us to continue to work with parents, provide them with resources, educate parents on how you can support your kids. And so as we go on through this journey, we're going to try to put out more and more information to our parents to help them. We need to also help educate our teachers so that they can actually help assist, our parents as well. We have a large bilingual English language learners. We try to put out all of our communication in multiple languages. Our primary site, which is browardschools.com/coronavirus. It's in multiple languages. There are tips there for parents in terms of how you can work with your child. How do you sign on to, the systems and get access to resources? So we try to put those in multiple languages. And we also have direct lines for anyone who needs assistance. So if you call in to the district for help, the message will either be, in Spanish, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, whatever languages that we support in the district, and they can leave messages there, and we'll have someone that is fluent in that language actually contact them. So we have a whole department, ESOL department, English speakers of other languages. They've done a good job in terms of reaching out and continuing to connect with our parents, obviously making them feel comfortable, welcome, and part of the education process to the extent that we can. But notwithstanding all that work, there's a lot more we can do. There's a lot more we have to do. We are going to take this moment to learn a lot about our education system. And I would say when we go back, we shouldn't be going back to what we had. We need to be going forward. We see a lot of fissures in what I call our safety net in society, right? We've got huge food lines at our schools. Since we've shut down mid-March to now, as of today, we've served almost 600,000 meals out to families. The need's growing. Every week I see it growing by 20, 30,000 more. We saw the digital divide need. We were in a fortunate situation in Broward County because through the Smart Bond program that voters passed, we were able to go out and buy lots of computers, almost 100,000 computers, and reduce our student to computer ratio from 6-to-1 to almost 1-to-1. That's what put us in a position to be able to give out all the technology we were able to do. But Broward shouldn't be unique as we are in that fold, because I look across all these large districts in the country and they ask me, how are you guys able to do that? So we need, in this 21st century, in 2020 and 2021, every kid needs to have a computer and they need to have access. So we know the value of doing that, right? And so I think we need to start thinking about, what does a hybrid blended learning system look like? How do we support parents? How do they get better engaged? What I've done with my team of leaders in the district, we have a strategic plan in place for the district, but I think we're going to have to go revisit that and put together a revised plan that's focused on the near-term horizon, which is the next school year, and what does that look like, and how do we restructure ourselves to take the best out of what we're learning from this crisis, and put that in place. The things that aren't working well, where are we going to make investments to shore those up and fix them? So I know this is a time of crisis, but as I always tell folks, and it's been said by others, never waste a crisis, right? Use this to figure out how to get better.
That's my fear. Never waste a crisis. I know you gave us limited time, but I do have 2 questions. Do you have anything, Dr. Lee? Were you able to speak?
Yes. I heard the answer. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So one of the questions is, it was about laptops.
Do you have
What
a plan
happens
to
if the students don't return the? Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just repeating the question about was there a plan? We know that you guys had the laptops, and of course you had to give them out. Is there a place, is there a penalty for not returning the laptops? And does the school board have a plan to make sure that kids have the laptops when they come back for next year?
So the laptops I'd be concerned about are the ones that, our seniors have, right? Because they're going to be leaving. So we're going to put a process in place that, when you have to turn in your laptop and your cap and gown and so on to actually get your physical, diploma, et cetera. So we'll go through that. But
that makes
my
sense.
thinking at this point, and this is not, this hasn't been confirmed, it hasn't been approved by the school board, but what I'd like to do is to allow our students to keep those laptops, right? And use them because here's the thing, those laptops, they might be 2 years old, some of them 3 years old. We have what we call a refresh cycle in place. Our school board knows how important it is that you can't just go and buy the computers without having the strategy to go and what we call refresh and replenish those every 4 years, every 5 years. So we have those funds in place. We're going to be buying additional computers so we can replace those that break or get outdated. But I think given where we are, there may be an opportunity or a way to allow students to continue to utilize those laptops, maybe bring them back and forth to school, or they can be home. A lot of different scenarios that we need to think about. Because, one of the things that we haven't really talked about is, how do we open school? And I don't have a clear answer for that, but there are ideas and things that, I've thought about. We could be in a hybrid scenario where we have students that are home who possibly tested positive, but they could be healthy enough that they can engage in school, et cetera. Well, they shouldn't be penalized because they are dealing with, the virus at home if they're healthy enough to engage. So if they have a computer and the teacher's online at the school, they could still be getting instruction, right? Then we'll also have situations where we may have teachers and instructors who either they could be older, they may have underlying health conditions, may not feel comfortable coming there. So we may need to continue for them to teach, remotely, and obviously have some other education staff in the classroom with the kids that can come. So there's a lot of different scenarios. What I'm trying to do is to make sure that our infrastructure, our resources at our disposal are flexible enough to accommodate multiple scenarios. And fortunately for us in Broward, about 4.5 years ago, we began to make an investment in what we call blended learning, where teachers, we did single sign-on because we had, 20, 30 different programs that parents and students and teachers had to sign on to. And it got really confusing trying to remember all those passwords. And then integrate every one of those systems separately with our student information system. So what we did was we created one common way for you to sign in one time. You're authenticated with your credentials, then you're put into, you see a dashboard, and then you go into Canvas, which is essentially a virtual classroom. So we built that infrastructure, and at the time that we closed our campuses, almost 60% of our high school teachers were using it regularly, about 50% of our middle school, but only about 19% of our elementary school teachers. So probably about the majority of teachers in Broward County were actually engaged in this, and we actually built a safe, secure environment. That doesn't exist in many places. A lot of districts are scrambling, they're cutting deals with vendors, they're trying to cobble all of these things together. We're fortunate that we've actually built an environment, a foundation that we could build on. So that puts us in a decent place.
Well, I can say this about Broward County schools, and I love Broward County schools. I love when I was making a decision, when your kids get out of elementary, most parents are making a decision if they want to do public school or private school because they have that fear that their kid is not well enough or mature enough to handle other kids. I'm very thankful, and I know that Broward County schools is very innovative. It has been for me. It has been for, my community. And I always tell them, if you just take the time, to see what's out there, I love it. Me personally, I just absolutely love it. I'm always encouraging those, like different schools, especially those with higher education. We have those schools, Parkway Middle and, Plantation High and other places that have that higher learning that is available to them. Now, my daughter has AP. She still has to take the test, of course. However, she has, starting in the next year, dual enrollment.
Yeah.
How is that going to play a part for those students?
Yeah, so dual enrollment, that's going to be pretty dicey getting into next year because of the financial situation. So we're trying to work things out with Broward College and some of the other places that we've been doing dual enrollment in. But I clearly expect, unless something changes with additional funding, that they will cut the dual enrollment program. So we're going to have to figure out how we can, again, provide some of those opportunities within the district. I will say there are a lot of AP related courses that are just as strong or stronger than many dual enrollment classes that students take. But I do want to address your first point because I think it's so important and it's so overlooked. You can get a great education at any school in Broward County. As an example, I always joke with folks. I say, well, if you want your kid to go to Princeton, send them to Boyd Anderson. The reason I say that is my youngest daughter went to Princeton, and one fall, I think it was in her senior year, my wife and I went there for some dinner event that they had put on. And so while I was there, a young man comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Superintendent Runcie, when kids do that, they probably from Broward County." So I started talking with him, and he was telling me how he lives in Weston, and his mother wanted him to take advantage of the IB program, International Baccalaureate program, that we put in at Boyd Anderson. He didn't want to go and drive all the way across the county, but she made him. And he ultimately said, "Hey, look, they got some of the best teachers. I got some of the greatest education. People overlook the school because of the demographics, the neighborhood it's in, etc. But he said it's an amazing education. And look, I made it all the way to Princeton from there, and I'm doing well." And so, you don't have to go to private schools. You can go to Broward schools, and your kid can end up there's fewer places you're going to go, and it's probably better than Princeton. So.
Sure enough.
Yep.
Is my superintendent, my wife is a former Broward School Board employee teacher there for 10, 15 years. You mentioned about virtual teaching. Is that something that's going to be maybe a position that will be in Broward County? Maybe you'll be able to recruit maybe old, former teachers or older teachers close to retirement. Talk about that a little bit and how that may be a new reality as well.
Yeah, so we know that there's some teachers who are struggling to get online, do face-to-face, because I've heard from some parents about that. And, they don't think it's fair because they see other teachers doing it. So we're working to do a couple of things. One, to provide some real robust training and support, some mentoring for teachers as well. So this week, I'm working to identify folks that are in non-classroom positions, right? These are central office administrators who work in academics, who have great experience working with our online system. They need to be there as a resource that we can assign them to teachers when they need it. And then I'd also like to recruit some of our more experienced teachers, if you will, some of our master teachers when it comes to this distance learning. Possibly pay them some type of stipend where they can actually go and help their colleagues and support them. And I know this works well. I've had many discussions with our Broward Teachers Union on it, and they will tell you that pretty much every case they've worked with where there's been a teacher that has been struggling or apprehensive, once they're paired up with someone who can kind of coach them through it, help them get acclimated, they love it. They're on board, and they'll say things like, "Hey, I wish I was on this earlier. This is great." So we're gonna do more and more of that as time goes on. It's not overnight, but I think at a minimum, putting a pool of folks together. Now, some of them, as you mentioned, over time, they may be retired educators who or experts in this who can help train and support others. But I think it's going to be part of the core skill set of a teacher in the 21st century. And we need to make sure that we're providing the kind of support and training to them by any means possible.
Well, thank you so much, Superintendent Runcie. I don't know if you have time for one more question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Someone just came in, a young lady, Nakisha. Let me see what she said here again. Will you be doing additional training for elementary students on Canvas, such as navigating and typing skills? Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, no, so it is really important because you got kids, they spend their time like typing on the cell phones and all these other devices. That's not how you type on a keyboard. So they run into problems. So we do have typing programs we're introducing into middle school for students. And yes, they will continue to get ongoing training on how to navigate Canvas and utilize many of the tools and resources that we put out there. This moment again really I think heightens that need, heightens that exposure. And for any of our kids that were on the fence, they got to be engaged right now. The other piece, which you didn't mention, which I think is also important, is what we call digital citizenship. It's a course that we've introduced in middle school, but we really believe that all students need to take it. But it really talks about how to navigate, use internet resources safely and in a responsible way. So I think that needs to be and is part of the work that we're doing to educate our students as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. So my last thing is we're less than 30 days until school ends.
Yeah.
I want to thank the school board. I know it has been probably some challenges there and trying to get everyone on board. Everybody may not think the same, but my last question or my last comment for you to just encourage those who have the last 30 days, to finish strong.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't finish the race. Finish the race if you just go to the 75-yard line and you got 25 yards left. You might as well go and finish it in whatever fashion because the goal is to finish. And I think that students, our young people need to hear that. They need to hear from their parents. They need to hear from their friends, their relatives, that it's important to finish anything you start. And yes, this
Oh,
can be a
am I the only
disappointing.
one?
Hello?
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, this can be a disappointing period for many, but it's through disappointment and struggle that you find ways to persevere. You find ways to be successful. They're running a series um, on television now called The Last Dance. I don't know, some of you may see it. It's about the Chicago Bulls
Right.
and that whole period of time that they were at. Now, I lived in Chicago almost 30 years, so I was there the whole time this was going on. And yeah, it was impressive to see them win all the championships they did in the fashion in which they did it. But I think the thing that's most impressive and memorable to me is not all those championships, but it's Michael Jordan's story of what happened to him when he was in high school and he got cut from his basketball team. And he used that getting cut to be more. Now, his parents didn't go to the school and start going off on the coach and everyone, why you cut my son, etc. And being as some do today, they're just way overprotective. But our kids got to learn how to deal with disappointment and loss. So their message to him, well, hey, you want to make the team, you need to work harder. So he committed himself to working harder, made the team next year, and obviously the rest is history. He became what many would argue the greatest player we've had in the game. And this is a kid that was cut in high school. So you're going to have disappointments, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have struggles, but you got to fight through that. And your life can't be, I'm going to give up. If you stop now and you stop on the 75-yard line, you're never going to finish because you're starting to get these habits in where you accept failure. You accept being average, mediocre. And our kids don't need that. They can accomplish anything in the world that they put their mind to. And I believe in this next generation. But these challenges that they've been through are things that they can learn from. It's going to make them stronger, more resilient. They need to motivate themselves from it and just figure out how to change the world, make it better.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Superintendent. Go ahead, Nathan.
No, I'm saying just thank you again, Superintendent. You've had a long year. You started off in a battle and ended in a battle. But you've been persevering. You finished the course, and I just want to commend you for just standing tall and being who you are. And thank you again so much for being on the show with us tonight.
Right. Well, thank you all for your show, and appreciate being on. And I keep sharing this great information that you have with our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a great one.
Be blessed.
Enjoy your evening.
Well, thank you guys. That was an awesome show. To our listeners who are listening, you can go back and hey, right now in my mind, I'm going to listen again because there were a lot of questions and answers that I can implement to put out there. And I think that's relevant because sometimes we're asking the same questions and basically Runcie basically said the answers to everything that we've been asking, most of those questions. I mean, we have probably a whole nother laundry list of things that we can ask, but we're only on the air for just 1 hour. But I thought one of the things I did find takeaway was he made a whole lot of sense when he said about the shipping industry, the hotel industry, a lot of things that bring tourism money to South Florida and those monies that bring to education. And that's a big loss. 25% is a lot of those who may be or could be cut, during the next year. That's a lot. And also making yourself being prepared to be a virtual teacher. I can only say for my niece, her teacher has a very good passion. She's up, she's jolly, she's very patient. Because I'm like, listen, girl, she's very patient. I'll say that again. And she's nice about it. And she's like, well, I'll help you. And she's on time, all of that. And to know that some of the teachers are just not with it, it's a
And
failure
she's
to the
dealing with
kids.
elementary.
Right. It's like, okay, I'm not logging on today. I'm taking a break, or whatever. It's not a vacation. It's still education. We have less than 30 days. So it's still the education to that, and us parents and as you can say, it's very important that we get up. We have to make it a routine. It's not a holiday. Even though we're on quarantine, you may not have to get up and physically go to your job for whatever the reason may be, but they still have an education. You still gotta set your alarm, get up at whatever, if they have to be on at 9:30, 10:30, whatever the time is, make sure that they're on, make sure that the education is continued. It's important because one, you got to set the standard to them that their education is important. You guys can jump in at any time, but I just think it's important because as parents, we still have a duty to continue and to be there, just like Roncie was saying. We have to finish growing. We can't finish at 75%. We got to go the whole 100. I don't want you later on telling me, well, you ain't even finished my education. No, you ain't putting that on me.
Right. I think
No,
a great way of dealing with the fact that this is so traumatic is keeping some level of normality, even if it is just a half day schedule. Because I saw when this first began a lot on Facebook and Instagram, there were schedules going around, and it had their child's day scheduled from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that may be a bit much for some parents. For some parents, that was golden, but for some, it was like, whoa, that's overwhelming. But even if it's a half day of make sure you're scheduling schooling, make sure you're keeping your prayer life and your spiritual life strong because it is uncertain. And while we're stressed, just imagine how young people who can't fully process what's going on, how they're taking
Right.
it. My kids ask me every day, why can't we go to the park? I've told them multiple times the park is closed. And they give me this look like, we think you're lying. So I realized that they're just not old enough to process. We even drove past the park one day and I showed them the caution tape around it. See, we can't get on it. And they're still like, stop, mommy, park. So I can only imagine as they get older, trying to process, I can't play with my friends, I can't do these things. So you don't want to add too much stress on them. You still want to give them some room to deal with the stress in their life because at young ages, not playing with your friends is a big deal. We as adults realize, it's not that big a deal, but for them, it is a big deal. So I think it's great that we have a superintendent who is acknowledging that this is a rough transition, but the fact that he has a lot of plans on how to deal with students now and in the future, it makes me hopeful that when my children, because I still have the babies, enter the school system, that they'll be taken care of.
And I think, one of the things that he stressed, he didn't come flat out and say it, but he was able to squash the myth of the virtual vacation. While we understand that there's going to be some level of leniency, don't just set your kid up for failure, just hoping and praying that they're going to just pass you because you did absolutely nothing. That's not going to do anybody any good. More importantly, the child, of course. And, I didn't mention it to him, but we know that myth is majority in the urban neighborhoods that, hey, parents lackadaisical. A lot of it is because, let's be honest, they can't help with their child education. Their educational level is low. And, he talked about that a little bit about, he understands that there are a lot of children that are struggling at home, but it's time to put forth an effort. And, we know what I don't think he should have said that, think about the laptops, because now he sure ain't gonna get them back. But, but I do think.
Well, he said it wasn't official, so he's not gonna say it publicly.
We don't hear the whole sentence. We hear what we want to hear, and then we run with it. But I do think, for those that are watching this show, that parents should understand that laptops are essential. Is as essential as the pair of Jordans that your kid is looking for. It's just that essential. And so, I don't want to have to wait in line for hours for a laptop or be concerned, do I have to return it back? turn it back in. Let's just make sure that our children, we can afford it. Come on, let's be real. Most of the parents can afford it. They just haven't made it a priority. So we need to make sure that we make sure that our children have all the essential items for school, so that if and when this happens again, they'll be prepared.
And especially those who are going into kindergarten, right? Is that what you first start? Is it pre-K? One of
Pre-K,
those.
kindergarten.
Kindergarten first.
Kindergarten. Yeah, kindergarten, because pre-K is at the nursery, or kindergarten when they're going into kindergarten, because we haven't, like he said, we don't know the structure of how they want things to happen from now until until the next school year starts. So yeah, and I was very shocked about I got to let my baby know she ain't gonna be able to do her dual enrollment. you know,
Funding.
yeah. Yeah. But I just want everybody to, if you guys have any last thing to say, be encouraged as a parent, of what's going on, and be motivated. I know sometimes it's hard for ourselves to, yeah, Kim, some schools do have pre-K, to be motivated with our kids. I'm gonna be honest with you. So I have a niece. I went and got her today. Listen, I got to make sure I ain't no fault to your mama, but I want to make sure that you want every day, because I need you to continue to learn, with no sleeping in late, like, I just got up and, all of that there. We're not doing that, no, we're not doing it. Not on my watch. So, and it does take a village, guys. So if you have any nieces, nephews that call them up, try to find out. I'm that one. Let me put your teacher information. I don't sit the word to teacher. Send me the information that you send out every day. And she does. And she do. So, I want to know what's going on. But hey, yeah. Y'all have any last things, guys?
I'm just gonna hop back over what I said earlier about the graduation. Hey guys, let's see some creativity out there. These graduations, let's turn some backyards. Let's turn some.
I like that what you said. The backyards,
Yes.
and you can like upload it as a video. That's virtual as well.
Right.
They
I know in Broward it's big, getting together for prom. They have all these prom parties where you get together and do all that. Let's be creative. Let's not try to put all of the pressure on the school system and try to throw out negative things because they don't, hey, as the superintendent said, they paid money for these events already. So surely they want to have the events. The money has already been spent, but let's just, if you have a child that's worked hard, be creative. I encourage pastors. I don't want to say offhand, but we're going to be doing some things for our graduates. Churches, organizations. Let's help parents be creative. Photographers. Hey, if you're blessed to be a photographer and want to lend your services out or charge for free or very affordable, this is the time. Especially for African American, we know we could be creative. So let's be creative in this season. Let's celebrate our children because, hey, they'll never get an opportunity to graduate again. And so, hey, Kim said they used to have prom watches. So let's have graduation watches.
I know that'd be cool. Hey. Like if you're in a car and like you drive up and then you get out with your hat and gown. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
And somebody take their pictures and and somebody's doing it virtual or maybe have a site or just to a site. Yeah, that sounds good. I love it. Yeah.
Creativity. I think we have to definitely let go of the do as I say and not as I do mentality. And we have to actually do. We are surrounded by each other. We're in the home 24/7. So I think one of the most important things we can get out of this as a family and as a community is to actually practice good and healthy mental and physical and spiritual practices. So we have to show our children, our loved ones, how they can maintain through a crisis. If we are hyperventilating and losing it and going off every 5 minutes, we're teaching kids that this is how you deal with hard times. But if we show them, all right, we're going to have to sit down as a family, create a new normal. Here's our schedule. Here's our time. Here's our prayer. Here's our breakfast. You know what? Our day's going to start a little later because y'all not getting up on time. Or our day's going to start earlier because you're morning children. I have a niece who used to wake up at 6 a.m. ever since she was little. And I was like, girl, if you don't go back to bed, and she's still a morning person. So adjusting to your family and your family's needs, but most importantly, actually modeling those healthy mental and physical practices more than, okay, checking off on your task, actually showing them this is a healthy way to maintain.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because on next week, like I said, we're shifting gears, just talking about one thing. We'll be talking in regards to our mental health and our physical health while I'm doing this quarantine here. So we're going to be talking about that, guys. So make sure that you tune in back on Monday at 7 p.m. here on the Table Talk Radio Show. Make sure to share it. If you have any things that you would like to add or give us any comments, you can at Table Talk Media PR at gmail.com. Table Talk Media PR at gmail.com. Send us a comment and also like and share this video. We want to thank you guys for tuning in to the Table Talk Radio Show. I want to thank Dr. Tarisha Lee and also Pastor A. We thank you guys so much, and everyone have a great night.
Peace out.
Good night.